I'm previewing the upcoming Candidates Tournament, and there's just one of the 8 players that I've yet to feature, and that is Fabiano Caruana, currently standing at number 2 in the world in the live rankings with a rating of 2803. He's back over the 2800 barrier. He's age 31, so he's in the prime of his life. So what's his previous record in the Candidates? Well, he's played 4 times before. 2016, he got close, scored 7.5 out of 14. If you remember, he lost in the last round against Kariaki in a heartbreak game. In 2018, he absolutely stormed it, won it with 9 out of 14, and of course qualified for a match against Magnus, and he came pretty close there. In 2020-2021, remember that was the COVID Candidates where it was split. He also scored 7.5 out of 14. Was doing very well, but he lost a crucial game to Anish Giri later on in the tournament. And in 2022, he started incredibly well with 3 wins in the first half of the tournament, and then lost 4 games in the second half and ended up with 6.5, a bitter disappointment. So we know that Fabi can do it, but what kind of form is he in? Well, 2023 was a good year for him. He had a convincing victory in the USA Championship, as well as the Sinkfield Cup. Now, those are 2 very strong events, so to perform well there, really good. I'd say in 2023 he had just one slight blip. He lost his individual encounter with Hikaru Nakamura in the FIDE Grand Swiss tournament. Well, he didn't play badly, but that one game, that must have been a bit painful. So he hasn't played any classical events since that FIDE Grand Swiss in November 2023, although he did play in the freestyle chess GOAT Challenge, where he reached the final. So that's probably a nice tournament to play where he didn't have to show any opening preparation, but he could still play some classical chess, even if it wasn't traditional chess. So just, kept his hand in, and he's obviously still, playing very well. So, yeah, at 31, he's really at his peak. He won the Candidates in 2018. Will the stars align again? Well, he's on pretty good form. So, for me, he is the favourite to win the tournament. There you go. I'm not taking too many chances here in backing the strongest player on paper. But if I were going to pick another player, I would actually pick Nepo. I think, he's won the last 2 Candidates tournaments, and when he's on form, he can absolutely storm it as well. So they're my top 2 players, my top 2 picks, with Fabiano as favourite. There you go. I'm not risking too much there. He'll be there or thereabouts, I have no doubt, Fabiano. So anyway, let me show you one of his games that demonstrates one of Fabiano's skills, which is his sure-footedness in complications. He's a brilliant calculator. Well, he does most things in the game very brilliantly, but he's not afraid of complications. So this was his game, his first round game actually, from the FIDE Grand Swiss tournament, played on the Isle of Man. This was at the end of October. And Ivan Šarić from Croatia is playing white. And Fabi doesn't go e4, e5. He obviously, first round of the tournament, he wants to mix it. And, it's a good idea. Even if he lost this game, then plenty of time to catch up. So, why not just go for it? And he's playing a Najdorf. Šarić goes for bishop d3, something of a sideline. g6. Well, I like this setup a lot. This is the so-called Dragodorf system, where you play this from a Najdorf, but you throw in this from the dragon. And yeah, I always enjoyed playing like this, actually. And Šarić plays the trendy move f3. Once he sees g6, then the computers say that you should go back into a kind of Yugoslav attack with f3 and bishop e3, but it looks slightly strange with the bishop on d3. Knight d7, there we are. I always enjoyed playing this setup. And b5. So you get in b5 before you castle, so it means if knight c6, you can just move the queen out, and that pawn is defended. That's the point. And if black is allowed to settle here, if black gets in bishop b7 and then castles, moves like rook c8, queen c7, black has a really comfortable position. That's a lovely setup. Like I said, I've played that quite a few times with black and just felt very comfortable. It's very important for white at this stage to actually upset black's formation. And Šarić, being a very strong player, understands that. He played a4 while black's king is still in the middle. So black does not really want to exchange here. That gives white a lot of freedom on the queen side. You know, a move like this rather restricts that knight, and there could be possibilities perhaps later on to occupy the a5 square, you know, maybe moves like knight c6. So b4 I think is, I'm not going to say forced, it's necessary. And the knight came back to e2, so this pawn is attacked. Now if you play like a normal move a5 defending that pawn, then white claims some squares with bishop b5, and again that's not what black wants. Positionally, that feels really nice for white. It's very hard to dislodge that bishop. Well, even if it's exchanged off, its place will be taken by the knight. So not a great position for black, and that's why Caruana broke in the centre. He has to play actively. And this pawn could be taken. I mean, it's risky. Black could maybe play rook b8, maybe queen c7. I mean, black certainly has compensation there because you're starting to get through in the middle. Once pawns are exchanged, then it gives the knight some squares. But that's tricky. Šarić plays bishop h6, which I think is a very attractive move, actually. The point is that black doesn't really want to castle here because of knight c6. This pawn is a problem. The queen has to step to an ugly square. And then e5. And I think white is doing very well there. You know, an exchange of bishops on g7 and then maybe queen b4. That's hanging. Knight doesn't have a good square. Not a good position for black. So Caruana had to exchange on h6. So yeah, I think Šarić would have been very pleased with this position. Black isn't castling soon. So Caruana needs counterplay in the middle. So he exchanged. Exchange of pieces. And then queen c7. So given half a chance, black would like to play bishop b7. Possibly even castles queenside just to get the king out of the middle. But castles introduces the rook to the game, and things are not so simple. You know, this is looking quite serious already. So knight f6 covers the f-file and looks at this e-pawn, maybe even looks at knight g4 as well. So yes, c3, knight g4 is actually possible. But Šarić took on f6, and it's a very tempting move. The queen came in, and then queen f6. You know, black's king is caught in the middle at the moment. Obviously, queen e7 will be met by queen c6 check. So this is a very scary position. You know, I wouldn't relish defending this with black. So what did Caruana do? Well, he played bishop b7. Well, it's not really about attacking that pawn. It's about covering c6. And also allowing this queen's rook into the game. Knight f4 played. Looks very scary. Right. How would you play here with black? So you're defending. There's a certain art to defending. It's not everyone enjoys doing this, but to defend well is a real skill in chess. So black to play, what would you do? Cheers. Queen d8. Well, it's logical to go for a queen exchange. Obviously, black is the exchange up, and exchange of queens will be very beneficial. But why not queen e7? Well, that'd be a bit careless, because the queen would come to b6. And that's lodged there, very hard to get the queen out. So after queen d8, where's that queen going? These squares are covered. Queen e5. Check. Queen e7. Okay, where's the queen going now? Only safe square is a5. Okay, so that little dance with the queen has put white's queen to some extent offside. So that was a nice little jig with the queen. Rook c8. Okay, the rook comes into action, and perhaps at some point queen c5 could be a good move. Well, if black had another turn here, I think queen c5 would just about force an exchange of... Yeah, it does force an exchange of queens. So that's why Šarić played knight d3. My computer indicates queen b6 as a better move, but I can understand why Šarić would want to play knight d3, just covering this one. And now Fabiano's next move. I remember playing through this game at the time and thinking, wow, you need real guts to do this. So he's done some careful stepping, and now what did he do? Bam! He went on the counter-attack. Well, with white's queen across the other side of the board from the king, in fact, this works. But what an extraordinary move. I mean, if the pawn is taken, then we've got to check. That's one of the problems. But still, you know, this is scary. I mean, that tactic works for black, but in some positions, you know, isn't the rook going to come into the game? If it does, then black's king could be in massive trouble. Knight f4. Yeah, I mean, this is really frightening, because with the f pawn advancing, then the e6 square is no longer covered. Pawn takes pawn. But f5 has brought the rook into play. But it's incredible that the king is sort of okay in the middle of the board. Looks scary. And again, comes a brilliant move from Caruana. Queen f6. Great move. So the threat is queen f2 and queen f1. Background checkmate. And if knight takes rook, then that can be taken with check, and then you can mop up. And the other thing about queen f6 is that it stops the queen coming back into the middle. A queen on e5 could have been quite serious. h3. So Šarić had to take a time out to give the king some luft. Rook f7. Okay, means the rook activates actually. Rook e1. Queen f2. Queen takes rook. Can he get away with this? Yes, he can. After this move, rook e7 is a very cool move. if there's a check here, in fact the king can just step out the other side of the rook. So the rook does a good job here actually. Knight b3, well, if you have to make a move like that, then clearly things have gone badly wrong. And queen f2 played, and that was the final move of the game. e3 is coming, and that bishop will sear down the diagonal in combination with the queen, and it is game over. And there's nothing that the queen and knight can do at the other end. I thought that was a brilliant game, really gutsy all the way through. I mean, from both players actually, but yeah, basically Fabiano never backed down. He realised he had to go for it with b4. He realised best policy was to play actively, to blow up the centre of the board. And then round here, well, I mean, this was really exceptional. After the exchange sack, I thought this was a fantastic performance. I mean, this is scary, but yeah, this was a nice start. Really well played by Fabiano Caruana. If he's going to win the candidates, he will need to be at his best. However, if he is at his best, he can indeed win, because his best really is better than anyone else's in the tournament, in my opinion. There we go. In my next videos, I'm actually going to be previewing the women's candidates tournament, which takes place in the same venue at the same time. So look out for those. Thanks for watching.